Well, good evening, everyone. I think this is the 11th year that I've been asked to address the AGM of the British Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and before that in Australia or Singapore. But it's the first time that I've ever had to do it by video as a DGM. But then I guess for most of us, the last few months have contained quite a lot of first times for doing things. Well, normally I would at this point be congratulating the Chamber and its member companies on another series of outstanding achievements over the past year. And of course, some of those congratulations are still very much due, and not least for the Chamber for being selected as the APAC Chamber of the Year. But I think it really has been a game of two halves, as we say in baseball. And it's not so long ago that we were celebrating the Emperor's enthronement and the Rugby World Cup and Japan's very successful G20 presidency. But all that seems a long time and a world ago now. And some of the things that we were looking forward to this year, like the state visit by the Emperor to the United Kingdom, the Olympics and the Paralympics, and of course our own year of UK and Japan, have all been postponed. I guess when you look around the world right now, you feel pretty thankful to be here in Japan, where a combination of government policies and underlying cultural and public health factors have kept the incidence of COVID and the death toll much lower than in many comparator countries. But obviously, COVID has had a massive impact on all of your businesses, on your supply chains, your operations, your markets. Some industries like travel, hospitality have been devastated. And in our personal lives, many individuals have had friends and families affected, whether here or at home. So I think the resilience that you've all shown has been fantastic. And clearly the cost of the government support packages, which have been provided in many countries, means that all of us are going to face some difficult economic times going forward. And I think businesses will need to continue to be agile in the new circumstances. So against that backdrop, I think that the work that the BCCJ has done to support its members through the crisis has been really impressive. In particularly the various webinars, several of which some of my colleagues and I have taken part in over the last month. At the embassy, we haven't been hosting all the events, business functions, receptions and seminars that we would normally be doing, but actually we have been keeping quite busy. We've been supporting vulnerable British citizens, including particularly the victims of the Diamond Princess cruise ship crisis back in February, which seems a very long time ago already, and making sure that we disseminate the latest advice on health and travel restrictions on both the British and the Japanese sides. We've also been keeping busy on the business side, staying in close touch with key investors. I've been talking to a couple of CEOs just today, but also helping the UK's National Health Service to procure medical equipment and supplies from around the region. We've been responding to a seemingly insatiable demand for information from London, for detailed information about host governments' COVID policies and their impact. There's been a lot of analysis going on around the world. And finally, we've been working with Japan on the global response. Later today, in fact, Prime Minister Abe will be taking part in a virtual global vaccine summit, which is being hosted by Boris Johnson, the purpose of which is to mobilize huge sums of money, which will enable an anti-COVID vaccine to be developed and then rolled out across the world, including to the most vulnerable countries as well. And the UK recently announced that we would be putting around $2 billion into that initiative over the next 5 years. So, of course, we are all proceeding with great caution, but I think I've sensed in the last couple of weeks a return towards a bit more normal business activity as the state of emergency here has lifted. I can't give you the exact date, but I can tell you that very soon our Trade Secretary Liz Truss and the Japanese Foreign Minister, Minister Motegi, will be jointly launching the formal negotiations on the new UK-Japan free trade agreement. And in fact, detailed technical discussions on that have already begun. And both sides are very keen to have that new agreement in place before the end of the year, when the implementation period following our departure from the EU in January comes to an end at the end of December. So I guess some of the adaptations and the new ways of working that we've experienced over the last few months will become part of the new norm in future. Even the way that we're communicating to have this meeting this evening, I think, is going to be a much bigger part of all our futures. And I noticed that many businesses around the world have stepped up to the challenge. I was particularly fascinated to hear news from the UK that many whiskey and gin distilleries have switched to making industrial sanitizers. And it made me wonder whether, when this is all over, Unilever's Domestos household bleach are going to retaliate by bringing out their own fine single malt. Well, on that note, I'd like to raise a metaphorical glass to the BCCJ and its members as we look forward to a hopefully increasingly normal period ahead. Thank you very much.